So imagine a master digital architect, right? A guy who can sit down at a computer and just single-handedly build the complete digital shadow of an entire county.
Using thousands of nested HTML tables, no less, like just brute forcing it.
Exactly. Thousands of them. And then he turns around and trades that entire virtual Flagler County just to get a custom-built hot rod PC from Ocean Atlantic Computers.
Which is an incredible trade.
Oh, it's wild. But then he doesn't stop. He pivots immediately into the chemical industry using like a penny saver ad.
Right, getting into X1R performance lubricants and Suncoast chemicals.
Yeah, he hustles this performance lubricant straight into Walmart Bentonville with these custom blister pack racks.
Right.
He's getting NASA endorsements, sponsoring Mike Wallace's Chevy and the Daytona 500.
And Buck Parker's Corvette, right?
Right. And even infiltrating the first-year X Games with skate lube. I mean, it sounds like the resume of an entire corporate executive team, you know, not just one guy.
It really does. It's almost unbelievable output.
It is. So for you listening today, I want you to take that image, that high-level, hyper-adaptable digital mastermind, and just completely erase it.
Gone.
Yeah, replace it with a 14-year-old kid in the 1970s. He's standing on a wooden dock in Connecticut, covered in fish guts and diesel fuel, learning how to snag bunkers for bluefish bait.
That is a stark contrast.
Right. So the question we're looking at today is, how do you get from that kid on the dock to the digital architect out-evolving corporate Cork Express cage birds using a royalty-free Corel vault?
And that right there is the real mystery we are unpacking today. Because, you know, in our last deep dive, we looked at the sheer staggering output of this protagonist's career. All the stuff you just mentioned.
Yeah, the Florida years.
Exactly. But right around the 19-minute and 13-second mark of that last deep dive, we kind of unknowingly circled a massive blind spot.
What do you mean?
Well, we saw the results of this unique internal framework, this hybrid analog hustle and digital architecture operating system. But we never actually asked where that mindset came from.
Oh, right. We saw the machine, but we completely missed how the engine was built in the first place.
Exactly. So today, we are traveling back in time. We're going pre-Florida.
Yeah.
Before the bedroom lab, before any of those technical skills even existed.
We're going back to the early working years.
Yes. We really need to see exactly how this guy developed an operating system that allowed him to be dropped into literally any environment and just completely master it.
Okay, so to understand that, I feel like you really have to look at the specific era he was dropped into, right? Because our sources take us back to his birth in 1963.
Yeah, he was what you might call a gap kid.
A gap kid?
Yeah, so his older siblings were children of the 1950s. They were raised by younger, much more anxious parents in a culture that was, you know, heavily structured, very rule-bound.
Okay, but by the time our protagonist is actually growing up and exploring the world in the 1970s, that parental dynamic has completely shifted.
Radically shifted. His parents were older, they were tired, but maybe most importantly, they were confident.
Right, they'd done it before.
Exactly. The older siblings had moved out, the house was quiet, and what was left for him was just this vast, unstructured freedom. I mean, no one was hovering over his shoulder.
Which makes me think of, like, playing an open-world video game. You know those games where you just bypass the tutorial, you have zero map, and you're just dropped into the wilderness?
Oh, yeah, and you just have to figure it out.
Right. You have to figure out the physics of the world entirely through trial and error. But, I mean, if you're a kid in the 70s left to your own devices like that, how does that flavor of neglect actually translate into a strategic advantage?
Well, that's the thing.
Why didn't he just end up in constant trouble?
Because we often mistake that kind of freedom for neglect, right? But in his case, it wasn't neglect at all. It was an extreme form of trust.
Trust. Okay, I see that.
And that trust forced him into what the sources beautifully describe as apprenticeship by proximity.
Oh, I like that phrase.
Right. So by the time he was 14, that open world map he was exploring mostly consisted of a 4-mile bike ride. Mostly downhill, thankfully.
Yeah, from his house on Orchard View Road.
Exactly. 53 Orchard View Road, straight down to the Guilford docks.
And the docks back then, I mean, they weren't just a scenic place to hang out and get an ice cream. This was a heavy, working waterfront.
Very heavy. It's loud, it smells like salt and exhaust, the rigging is constantly clattering. It's a serious place.
So what's a 14-year-old doing there?
Well, the center of gravity down there was the dockmaster, a guy named Don Lowell. And Don became this informal mentor to him.
But probably not the kind of mentor who sits you down for life lectures, right?
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
He just put the kid to work. He'd buy him lunch, But in exchange, he taught him how to make lead sinkers, how to properly fuel the boats, and how to scrub out the public bathrooms without cutting a single corner.
Which, on the surface just seems like basic, grueling manual labor. But there is a deeper mechanical learning happening here, isn't there? Because you can't just stumble your way through a working dock.
You absolutely cannot. You are dealing with tired working-class men and completely unpredictable weather. What he was actually learning was how to observe the rhythms of a complex ecosystem.
Right. Reading the room, essentially.
Yes, he had learned how to read the water, read the shifting weather, and most importantly, read the men. Like, when do you speak up? When do you stay out of the way?
How do you make yourself useful to adults so they actually treat you like you matter?
Exactly. He's developing these massive pattern recognition skills. He's learning to watch a system, figure out exactly what it needs, and then just quietly provide it.
Which perfectly sets up the hinge point of this entire story. This is that 19.3 mark we were talking about.
Right, the transition.
The moment this doc mindset moves into the actual professional world. Because the sources mention his older brother helping him get a foot in the door in retail, right?
That's right. So he starts in the stockroom at Genevieve's. He actually works his way up to assistant manager there, and then he makes the leap to Macy's. But the crucial detail here is the advice his older brother gives him right before he starts. He asks his brother, what does the job actually entail? He's expecting a checklist.
Like run the register, stock the shelves, sweep the floor.
Exactly. And his brother just looks at him and says, don't worry, your job is to make your boss look good.
Okay, I have to push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
Because, for you and me hearing that today, it sounds a bit like corporate bootlicking, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has that ring to it.
Right. It sounds like playing politics, hovering around the manager, and taking credit for things instead of just putting your head down and doing the actual hard work.
I completely understand why it sounds like brown-nosing on the surface. But if you look at the actual mechanics of what he did with that advice, it wasn't about ego at all.
What was it about?
It was about systems engineering. That single sentence, make your boss look good, completely detached the work from his official job title.
Okay, walk me through how that actually looks in practice, like on the floor at Macy's.
Okay, so let's look at his time in Macy's men's shoes. He's hired part-time just to sell on the floor. Now, if he's just doing his job title, he measures feet and he rings up loafers.
Right. Basic retail.
But if his goal is to make the boss look good, he has to look for the invisible gaps that are causing the boss stress.
Oh, interesting.
So he starts looking at the inventory flow. He notices when certain sizes run out right before the weekend rush. He starts talking directly to the buyers, anticipating the needs of the floor before the manager even realizes there's a problem.
Wow.
He's literally smoothing out the sales numbers behind the scenes.
So he's not like bringing the boss coffee and kissing up. He's making the entire department function so flawlessly that the boss looks like an absolute genius to the corporate office.
Precisely. He's doing the invisible work,
Mm-hmm.
and the incredible outcome of doing that invisible work is total freedom.
Because no one is micromanaging you if everything is perfect.
Exactly. And within 6 months of taking this approach, that small shoe department grew by 300%.
Wait, 300%?
300. In a major department store where every square inch of floor space is heavily scrutinized, that is an unbelievable metric.
That's crazy.
And over time, he actually stopped viewing people as his boss altogether. The project itself became the boss.
That is such a fascinating mental pivot. You put the system, the project, above your own ego. And he was getting a masterclass in this beyond just Macy's, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the sources talk about his mentors at the time, Joe and Joel Fleischman, right? The brothers who owned a local department store, they were taking him down to the New York garment district.
Yes. And down in the garment district, you aren't just looking at clothes on a rack. You are watching the raw machinery of commerce.
Right, the haggling, the buying, the whole supply chain.
Exactly. And the Fleischman brothers taught him how to truly see quality.
Hmm.
They taught him the vital difference between what a product costs to make and what that product is actually worth to a consumer.
So he's learning to read the retail ecosystem the exact same way he learned to read the tides and the weather at the docks.
Spot on.
But, an ecosystem isn't always just about commerce or inventory. Sometimes it's purely social.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings us to one of the most incredible tests of this mindset, which happened far away from the sales floor. Let's talk about the roommates.
This chapter is so rich because it places him in a highly ambiguous, very emotionally charged environment.
Set the scene for us.
So he's 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
And he moves into a basement apartment in New Haven. It's at 165 Park Street, right near the corner of Chapel and Howe.
Okay.
And he's sharing this tiny space with a coworker from the Macy's ladies' shoes department.
And you really have to picture this physical space to understand the pressure cooker they were living in. Because you walk onto the stoop of an old brownstone behind this heavy steel cage door.
Right, it's basically a bunker.
Yeah, there's one bathroom, one bedroom, and a living room. And the living room is our protagonist's room. His wall is literally just a draw curtain, and he sleeps on a Murphy bed.
And the visual contrast between these two roommates is just pure 1980s gold. I mean, you have the protagonist, who is this big, broad guy with heavy metal hair. He hardly admits to strictly using the pink can of Aquanet hairspray.
Pink can only.
Naturally. And then you have his roommate, who is this wiry, intense, new wave theater kid. A guy who walks tall, like his posture is the only thing keeping him from falling apart.
And the theater kid roommate is the one teaching our heavy metal protagonist how to apply guy liner for the clubs.
Yes. Handing him an Aziza eyeliner pencil, dead serious about the exact angle and pressure needed to get the look right.
It's a great image, and they're going out in New Haven, hitting Louis' Lunch, Richter's, Toad's Place.
Yeah, the nightlife became a classroom of its own.
Yeah.
But underneath the makeup and the hairspray, there's some very heavy reality happening in that apartment.
Right, it wasn't all just clubbing.
No, the roommate is in a deeply vulnerable transition. He's questioning his sexuality, he's going through a really tough breakup with his girlfriend, and he's navigating a super complicated dynamic with an older theater director.
A director who the protagonist quietly suspects is actually taking advantage of him, right?
Exactly. It's a lot of emotional weight.
There's even a moment in the sources where the roommate casually walks into the apartment and stumbles upon the protagonist, his ex-girlfriend, and another young lady in a rather awkward scenario.
Yes, a very awkward walk-in.
Yeah.
And what happens, the roommate doesn't freak out. He politely excuses himself, pulls the draw curtain closed, and later they just discuss it with absolute calm.
Which is wild. I mean, imagine being 19 years old in the 1980s. How many young guys in that era could navigate that level of social complexity, sexual ambiguity, and incredibly cramped living quarters without their ego exploding into massive drama?
Almost none. It's incredibly rare.
So how did he keep that situation so grounded?
Because he applied the exact same rule to his roommate that his brother taught him for retail.
Make the boss look good.
Well, the principle of it. He read the room, and he looked for the invisible gaps. He didn't force his own shape or his own judgments onto his roommate's life. Like, when the roommate broke up with his girlfriend to figure out his identity, the protagonist didn't offer some heavy judgmental lecture. He just used his subtle wit and said, "Nice, you can do my ironing too."
I love that. It uses humor to acknowledge the weight of the moment without making it heavy or awkward.
Exactly. It completely diffuses the tension. They even had a Monday night decompression ritual called We Survived the Weekend.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah, it wasn't just hanging out. That was a structural release valve to keep their shared system running smoothly. And it worked so well that years later, they met up for breakfast at Cafe 9 as adults.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the roommate brought his wife, totally unashamed of the journey he'd been on, and their friendship was completely intact. Perfect integrity.
So we have a guy who has truly mastered the art of subtlety. He can read the nuanced flow of retail inventory, and he can gracefully navigate the delicate emotional needs of a roommate in the 80s.
Very adaptable.
But here is where the story takes a really sharp turn, because it's one thing to be highly adaptable in a world of nuance. What happens when you are abruptly dropped into an environment where nuance simply does not exist, where subtlety literally gets you crushed?
You're talking about the shift to the roof.
Yes, the roof. But let's set the stage with the cars first, because the cars show us how he was preparing for this shift without even knowing it. The sources mention a couple of vehicles that really highlight his complete lack of material ego.
Yeah, the cars are great examples. First, there was the 74 Triumph Spitfire that he inherited.
Right.
So he and a friend try to replace the exhaust manifold, but they forget to install the gasket, and the car literally catches on fire.
Wait, it actually caught on fire?
Yeah, literally in flames. And he doesn't throw a fit. He just drags the charred remains to his sister's boyfriend.
And the boyfriend hands him, what, $700?
$700, tells him to stay the hell out of his own engine, and takes the title.
And our guy just moves on, which leads him to buy a Dodge Dart Sport 360. Muscle over British quirk.
Right. But again, he has absolutely no emotional attachment to the vehicle, because one day, the Dart just vanishes.
Stolen.
Or towed, yeah. Weeks later, he spots it locked behind a fence at a local impound lot.
Hmm.
He walks in, finds out the accumulated storage fees are actually higher than the value of the car, and what's he do?
He tells them to keep it, and he literally walks home.
Just walks away.
He doesn't tie his identity to the car. If the tool is no longer useful, he discards it without a second thought. And that ruthless detachment from his own ego is exactly what saves him when his oldest brother gets him a job as a roofer's helper.
Because a roofing crew in the 1980s is an entirely different universe than Macy's or a New Haven nightclub.
Yeah.
I mean, the language is blunt, the physical demands are brutal, and the hierarchy is incredibly unforgiving.
And he fails immediately.
Right, well, spectacularly.
He steps onto the roof and tries to use his retail-honed wit. He tries throwing out sly barbs and clever retorts to, fit in with the guys.
And the crew just completely ignores it. Because on a dangerous, loud roof, subtle humor just sounds like insubordination. Or worse, laziness.
Yeah, they don't have time for it.
Exactly. So the crew instantly tags him with a nickname. Ricky Do Wrong.
Ricky Do Wrong. Ouch. And, you don't get a nickname like Ricky Do Wrong for messing up one time. You get it because you are repeating a pattern of failure that everyone else can clearly see but you.
Exactly.
So how does he survive this? How does a guy go from patiently sharing eyeliner tics to surviving the relentless verbal hazing of a roofing crew without just walking off the job?
Well, he realizes that his current mask is going to get him killed, or at least fired. Subtlety is useless here. So he adapts. He stops trying to be the clever guy.
Right.
If the crew's treating him like a useless helper, he realizes he has to stop acting like one. He learns to swing his hammer hard and not to show off, but because the actual physics of the roof demanded a heavy swing.
He learns publicly, right? He stops hiding his mistakes and starts fixing them out in the open.
Yes. He realized that anyone on a job site can take a cheap shot. Anyone can punch down at the new guy. But to actually survive, he had to go back to his brother's role, make the foreman look good.
But how do you make a roofing foreman look good? You're not managing inventory anymore.
You carry the heavy, unwanted weight. You anticipate where the materials need to be before the foreman even yells for them.
You keep the job moving faster.
Exactly. He filled the physical gaps on that roof, just like he filled the inventory gaps in the shoe department. And once he started making the foreman's day easier, the hazing just stopped.
Wow.
He learned the ultimate blue-collar lesson. The harder you work, the less hard work you actually have to do.
Yeah.
Because you stop being the target.
That's brilliant. So let's pull all of these threads together. By the early 1990s, this guy has forged an incredibly robust internal framework.
Unbreakable.
He can read the unspoken needs of exhausted men at the docks. He can manipulate the invisible systems of retail to grow a department 300%. He can navigate complex, delicate social dynamics in a cramped apartment without an ounce of judgment. Right.
And he can survive the blunt physical brutality of a roofing crew by adapting his communication to the extreme. I mean, he has conquered the analog world.
Yeah.
He is physically and mentally unstoppable.
And then the foundation completely gives way.
Literally.
Yes, literally. He is up on a roof, and it only takes one bad step, one slip on the surface, and gravity just takes over. He falls.
God.
And the impact shatters his foot and completely wrecks his back and his knees.
Just like that, in the span of a single second.
In 1 second, the physical labor that he has relied on to survive his entire life is permanently over. I mean, his body, the primary tool he used to execute all of this adaptability, is just broken. The state paperwork calls it a severe injury.
But because of that internal framework he's been building since he was 14 on those docks, he doesn't see a tragedy, does he?
No.
He sees an opportunity. Think about the Dodge Start. He didn't attach his ego to the car when it stopped being useful, and amazingly, he doesn't attach his ego to his physical prowess when it's taken away. It's pure detachment. So the state agrees to pay for him to learn a new trade, which is how he finds himself sitting in a classroom at the Connecticut School of Electronics, CSE. He's sitting there with his shattered foot propped up on a chair, surrounded by textbooks.
And what is he learning at CSE?
He begins learning circuits, he learns logic gates, he starts learning the very early language of machines.
And you can just see the light bulb turn on.
Yeah.
Because circuits and logic gates are just systems. And if there's one thing we know this guy knows how to do, it's read a system.
Oh, absolutely. He realizes that the digital world makes perfect sense. It has rules, it has flow, and it has invisible gaps just waiting to be filled.
Right.
Electronics led to computers. Computers led to design software. Design led directly to the early web. The analog hustler, who is now confined to a chair, discovers the vast frontier of the digital world.
And that is the catalyst. That is the exact spark that will eventually lead him to build those nested HTML tables, to map Flagler County, and to push performance lubricants into Walmart.
It's all connected.
The internal framework wasn't destroyed when he fell off the roof. It simply ported itself onto a brand new digital landscape.
It was the ultimate pivot, made possible by decades of practicing adaptability in the real world.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with something to think about. Think about the worst misstep or injury in your own life. You know, that moment when the path you were comfortably walking on violently and unexpectedly ended.
We all have one.
We do. But what if that moment wasn't actually a tragedy? What if it was a threshold? What if it was the exact necessary event required to force your own internal framework to boot up a completely new reality? Because sometimes the only way to realize how adaptable you truly are is to have the map ripped right out of your hands.